Welcome to Still Untitled, the Adam Savage Project. I'm Will Smith. Joining me, as always, Adam Savage. And also Norman Chan.
Hello.
Norman Chan?
I think we're joining Adam.
Yeah, we're all joining Adam.
It's a human centipede.
Yeah. You know, at some point, you're going to be sitting in front of the TV and you're going to watch and you're going to say, you know, it's on Netflix. I should watch this finally. And that's always the wrong answer.
For the just the social context.
Did you watch it?
No, you know, I was in that. We were doing some data entry stuff the other day, and I was like, you know, maybe I'll finally I'll put on Piranha in the background and watch that. Is this because I like kind of monster movies sometimes? It is a real bad movie.
Yeah, well, what about James Cameron's first film, Piranha 2: The Spawning?
Well, I mean, I think that probably has something to, you know, you could say this is an American classic filmed in the jungles of Belize or something, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, that wasn't like, you could see what they were trying to do. They were trying to be really clever, but they just couldn't make it happen.
Oh, yeah.
So today let's talk about video games.
Let's talk about video games.
Because I think that you probably have pretty strong feelings about video games.
I never thought that I would, and if it's funny because in the macro picture, I'm like, video games are great. On a personal level, I don't have much use for them.
Explain.
Are you like a Roger Ebert type? Because there's a huge...
No.
We're not going to talk about games as art.
No. I'm happy to address that because I love Ebert. He is completely... It's ridiculous to attempt to say that anything cannot be art.
Sure.
That is ludicrous on every face. And I would love to sit down to dinner with Roger and explain that. And I don't think that he would disagree at the end of my explanation of why even someone who screws toothpaste caps on toothpaste tubes could turn it into a high art.
Inspected by number 7.
Absolutely.
I think that at this point he's just latched on, like he's become entrenched.
I believe he'd be trolling.
He has stepped back from his position. And,
Okay.
you know, it is something he goes back to from time to time. But
Well, you know.
he has a good point.
I think he's trolling a little bit, and I think, he is talking about it within some specific parameters. But let's talk about me and video games. So my first exposure to video games was an original Atari system that my older sister's boyfriend bought to the house, and we played all day, and I really enjoyed it.
Pitfall and the tank game and all that kind of stuff.
And
Okay.
Space Invaders and stuff. And I played video games when I was a kid in the arcades. I remember one birthday where my only present that I wanted was a roll of quarters in 2 hours. And I went and spent them all within like 20 minutes, and then I was crabby. My mom was like, "You ungrateful little shit."
Yeah, you got exactly what you wanted.
Yeah, I did, and boy, was it
You just didn't
terrible.
know the value of a roll of quarters.
Yes. So then when I was about 16, and I bought a 5200 set Atari from a local kid, and I played a bunch of those games. So I have spent some time gaming.
Well, you lived through the first video game.
That was the
like
first
the
one.
pre-Nintendo world,
Right.
as well.
And so you did, as a child, you know, and we know we'll get to Millpede, which you love.
Yeah.
But how important was playing video games when you were a kid and having those systems? How important was that to you, the formulation of your creative ability?
No, very, very. I would say in the grand total, I maybe played those games for a total of like 30 or 40 hours. I mean, really not much at all.
And you would rather be doing something else.
It's not that I would rather be doing something else. It's not, I mean, I remember really wanting to play them a lot, but I almost never had unfettered access to I'm sorry, I tell a lie. My very first video game was Pong. I bought it at the
Magnavox box?
The
You plugged it into
Magnavox
the TV?
Pong.
Oh.
The one that cannot be simulated because it's hardware, not
4
software.
D cells.
Yeah, I had it, and I remember my mom opening my door. I was probably like, I don't know how old, 13, 12, and she was like, "Are you playing Pong?" It was like 2 a.m, and I'm like, "No." I have the TV covered with a blanket.
So
Exactly.
were you less interested in the playing the game aspect and more interested in the hardware?
It's hard to say. It's just that maybe if I had more unfettered exposure, I would have a different opinion. But
You were 10 at this time?
Yeah,
Sorry.
10 or 11.
12. Yeah.
And so Pong I played for a long time. And then the Atari, by the time I was like 14 or 15, I played it a little bit. But for some reason, I never got around to playing. It's not like I made a decision, I'd rather be doing something else. It's just it didn't become this obsessive thing, which it is for so many people and has provided so many hours of entertainment for other people, just not for me.
Well, you also kind of grew up in the time before in the arcade era, before the development of like story-based narrative arc-driven games.
This is totally true.
Driven by mega corporations, basically.
So now within the basis of storytelling games, you have to help me remember which came first, Myst or Myst came before Tomb Raider, right?
Yes.
Okay. So I played Myst a bit.
Okay.
It's first CD-ROM.
I played, and I remember
one of the
getting
first.
it. So I remember thinking two things. I remember thinking, really? It's a goddamn HyperCard stag? You've got to be kidding me. And I was genuinely mad.
Oh, you played on the Mac.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was genuinely mad at the interface. I found it slow and plodding, and I was not as intrigued by the puzzles as I felt like I should have been.
Well, they weren't really puzzles. It was really like find this thing, mouse over until something glowed, and then drag it into the other place that glows. And it was something to look at, not really so much of it. The argument against that game, even at the time, was it's not really a game. It's kind of like.
But I never
Where's
got
Waldo?
very far with it. I never got very far. I wandered all over the place. I found the interface really slow. I played for about 3 or 4 hours. And then I was like, I had notes and I was like, nah, screw it. So then where does Riven fall with Tomb Raider?
Riven is before Tomb Raider. After Tomb Raider, before.
Okay, so when Tomb Raider came out, a friend of mine worked for Sony and he gave me a Sony PlayStation.
Right.
And I bought Tomb Raider because I thought it was just gorgeous.
Well, you're
Lovely.
looking, and you're as with an Indiana Jones aficionado.
Yes, totally.
The topic is of interest to you.
So for that though, what I found was I played it for about an hour or two, and I was like, okay, this is all right, but I'm so not into this dying thing. I'm really interested in the space.
Right.
I'm interested in the environments. So I went online and found the cheat codes and implemented the God mode cheat codes, which made me unkillable, but I still had to solve all the problems to get out of the spaces. And that I did. I went all the way through all the levels.
So the exploration was a hook for you.
The exploration is the hook, whereas the challenge of not dying, totally not
Fighting is
interesting.
no fun.
Not it just doesn't. I find it totally boring. As a challenge, and look, I fully admit it's also because I'm not very good at that stuff, and I just find the being set back to zero is just, I'm totally bored.
Well, and those kinds of mechanics assume that you have a understand the base language, right? So you need to be able to work the two thumbsticks, or in that case, the two D-pads.
And you also need to do that just to be able to cross a bridge or get through certain places in Tomb Raider. So I enjoyed that, but I was done, and I was totally done. I've never played another Tomb Raider.
That was probably a good decision.
Never really.
Yeah,
They
didn't
went
go
downhill.
good places, yeah.
Oh, I might have played Tomb Raider 2 about halfway through. Now that I think about it, I think I did. So then came Riven, and Riven, I really like. Riven totally captured me.
So you like those FMV sequences, like where you get on the roller coaster, mine cart,
really
and all
did.
that kind of stuff.
And I played that all on I think my PowerBook 1400, which was it's a
So
lot.
because the interface at that point was better.
Was much
and then
better.
So the puzzles, you could enjoy them more.
And the puzzles, I found myself figuring out the puzzles. It was built more the way I liked. And, I think I spent about, you go online, you read anybody's analysis of the game, and they're like, it's a good 18-hour game. And like, really? I think I've already spent like 20, and I'm only a third of the way in.
Yeah.
But so I probably played about 15 hours, and then I ran into the little girl. And that's this key moment in Riven where you've turned around, you haven't seen another human except for every now and then you see them running away in the distance.
Right.
And then there's this point at which you turn around and this little girl's standing in front of you in the path, and she like giggles and runs away. And I jumped out of my seat. And I was completely like, wow.
Like a horror jump, or like a surprise and delight
just
jump?
Totally, more just like it was a complete immersive jump. I hadn't seen another person, and now there was one standing in front of me, fully animated, and it just like I wasn't terrified of her, but it was so unexpected, and the game had led me to such a degree where I was completely gobsmacked by it in the best way, and I thought, oh my god, this is the most brilliant game ever. Then about 6 hours later, I got to the point in the game where it's this little room with all of these animal symbols and all these things. And what you are supposed to have remembered is the sounds that all the animals made in order to solve the puzzle. And I was so mad at how opaque that puzzle was. I got so angry about it. And I recognize, I'm sure there's a bunch of people like, oh, that was easy for me. That's fine. For me, it was so opaque, and it was like, that's the level I needed to. I mean, honestly, I just felt like it was mean.
What's a cheat? The game cheated you.
It felt like it cheated me.
Yeah.
And I didn't continue, and I never played to the end of Riven. I mean, don't get me wrong, I've wasted
And that ruined video games for Adam Savage forever.
I can't say that it did, but I mean, and I also have spent thousands of hours in front of the computer, writing, photoshopping, working with iMovie, doing everything that you do with computers.
We've seen your design docs for things that are in progress,
Right,
and
yes.
they are intricate and terrifying.
So I fully have the ability to be obsessive on a computer. It is just, it's purely about this, the kind of problem solving and the kind of gaming that is asked for out of these games just doesn't interest me. You know what I love? I love it when Unreal Tournament releases like Castlorama on the iPad. I love just wandering around. That's why I want a game that's like a really massive environment. I just want to wander around.
So you appreciate the art, like the level design.
Totally.
And
that's what I loved about Tomb Raider. It's like, oh, this is so cool. Look at what they did. Oh my God, it's a secret door. That's
all
awesome.
3D. That's amazing.
Yes.
I mean, the thing that's interesting that's happened. So since you last played video games,
Yes.
Ribbon was what, like 95, probably 96. It was when I was in college, I think.
Yeah.
Like there's been a rise of massive publishers because the budgets to create 3D environments is dramatically more than creating a 2D environment.
Yes.
And with that, you know, when you're spending $20 or $30 million on a game to develop it, then the people who are putting that money out want some return. So you end up with stuff like Call of Duty and Halo and these big mainstream, mass market, successful, like least common denominator titles. The thing that's happened in the last 4 or 5 years is that distribution channels for independent games have arisen. So a guy who wants to, we have 3 friends who developed a game in their basement, basically living room, down south on the peninsula, and they were able to release a game that saw widespread success.
Wow.
That was much more tuned to the thing that, like, it was specifically the thing that they wanted.
Right.
That never would have been able to have been funded with the mechanics that they chose and the kind of storytelling that they wanted to do in a more mainstream.
Yeah.
So you end up with games that are like Journey, pure exploration. It's just this awesome, huge world, and you can go wander around it.
And along those lines, so I also recently downloaded, is it the Red Riding Hood that's the really eerie one?
It's The Path.
The Path. Okay,
Yeah.
I downloaded The Path and I played with that a little while, and then again got to like, okay. Like, I also will tell you that when I got to Industrial Light and Magic in 1998, we did a lot of laser cutting. And so there was a laser room where you went and there was 6 computers networked together and you use them to laser cut. And if you were one of the laser guys like I was, you spent a lot of time in that room designing. And
that's essentially like Corel Draw or something.
we'd be using AutoCAD 2000 back then.
So vector stuff.
Yeah, vector stuff, and then outputting it through the CAD CAM software to the laser cutter. But it was 6 network computers. So about the time we moved the shop, that time, like 2000, they put on somebody. I think my friend Fawn put Unreal Tournament on all 6 computers, and we would spend lunches doing Unreal. Yeah. Now that was the most fun I've ever had gaming. But I really to me, it's not even about the fact that you know who you're shooting with. It is the LAN party aspect of that. You can hear everyone in the room. Everyone's part of the thing. You're like, my specific thing was I always went for the sniper rifle and the high perch. I was such an asshole. I loved that. You just sit there and pick people off, and of course, everyone's cheating by looking at where everyone else is sneaking, kind of looking around them.
It's a computer lab.
Totally computer lab. And that was tremendous amounts of fun.
Well, but that's just a team sport. It captured the flag.
Camaraderie. Exactly. And, Fawn has had a few LAN parties since then at his house in Lagunitas, and I keep on meaning, I just haven't had the ability to go when he's had them. But I've had tremendous amounts of fun. And then, Millipede. So when I was 15, 16, I worked as a busboy. Boy, everyone should work in the service industry at that age. It's like the key like developer of your sympathetic nervous system for working with people. But there was a Millipede game in the bar that I worked in. And so every night after I finished, I would get, $15 or $20 in tips, and I would play Millipede, and I got...
You use your tip money to play Millipede?
I totally used my tip money to play which, by the way, I realized was such an asshole thing for my boss to let me do.
Oh yeah, that's monstrous.
The free mode.
What a jerk. What an ever-loving jerk.
Watching me play full circle.
Watching me play for 2 hours, and he's just taking that money.
Busboys working for free.
I know. Ridiculous. But anyway, I would play Millipede for an hour every night. And I got really, really freaking good at it. And about a month ago, I went on to Craigslist and I found a guy who had this beautiful Millipede game. It's not an original cabinet. I don't care about that stuff. I just want the play and I want that big fat trackball.
Yeah.
And it turns out I'm still really freaking good at Millipede.
It was impressive.
So, like your relationship with games now, you don't have a need for them. I mean, you have enough things to keep you busy, enough hobbies to keep you busy. So, do your kids ask to play games? And
They play games. So this is the other place that I was surprised at is they do play video games. My son, thing number 2, has a PSP, and they both have iPhones, and they play games all the time on them. But I don't have any gaming systems in my house. They split time 50-50 with me and their mom. I'm divorced from their mom. And so at her house, they have games and they play them. That's fine. That's fine with me. I find that a kid who has just played, I have found this directly, that when my kids, and I can only speak to my kids, I can't speak to other children, I will tell you.
They're the only ones you've tested on.
When they're the only ones it's a group testing group of 2, is that when they've played video games for like 2 or 3 hours, they're jerks. Like it's unpleasant to deal with them.
Like
after
multiplayer shooters and stuff like that online, or
I find, and it might be different now, but at the point at which they wanted to play video games about 5-6 years ago, and they were like 8 or 9, and we would do gaming systems. We were starting to buy them. I bought a Wii.
Okay.
And we have a Wii. And
you guys bowled.
What's that?
You bowled.
I bowled. We bowled. Tennis is my game. My kids recently got better at me at tennis on the Wii, which is awesome because I was like an unstoppable force for a while.
Okay.
But they, and the Wii is much more of a social thing to me.
It's a living room game.
It's a living room game, and I really like that. I find so. We ended up being a no video game household at my house, and I'm as surprised as anybody by that. But I just find my kids much easier to deal with when the world isn't entertaining them like that. And this comes from an earlier thing, from way back, which is for one of my birthdays, I bought myself one of the first big 40-inch Sony Bravias. Back when they were expensive and not like $300.
When you couldn't go to Costco and buy a flat screen TV that was that big. Yeah.
And I bought it, and I can't believe I haven't told the story yet. So I bought it, and then on my birthday, my son, thing number 1, wakes me up. I guess there must have been like 8, 7. Yeah. And he wakes me up, and he's like, Daddy, it's like 6 a.m. on my birthday. We were playing with the lightsabers. I had the big Master Replicas lightsabers, and we smacked the TV, the new TV.
Oh, no.
And my brain, my just woken up brain goes through all the possible things that could mean. Did you knock the speaker grill off? Because I would be cool with that.
Yeah.
Did you knock a button off? So I go, what happened? And he says, something colorful.
So that's the right answer.
Well, so
oh God.
In the middle of the screen was this perfect rose of total destruction.
Where the crystals broke?
All of them.
Oh, no.
Just a total loss. A total loss. And the TV was 1 day old.
Oh, that's terrible.
So what happened was, up until that point, we had this policy on Saturday and Sunday mornings with the kids, which was that we get to sleep in. The adults get to sleep in because at that age, kids wake up at like 5:30. Entertain me. So we would let them watch movies and we'd let them watch TV until we woke up. And so the moment they broke the TV, I was like, it was my birthday, so July 15th. So I was like, that's it. There's no more TV for you of any kind for the rest of the summer.
Oh.
Now, the most surprising thing that came out of that was that Saturday mornings became a pleasure, which was if they woke up and they were entertained by a television from 6 a.m. until when we finally got out of bed at like 9:30, the rest of the day they were crabby and unpleasant. Or it wasn't that we noticed they were crabby and unpleasant until they got no TV in the mornings. And then when we finally woke up at 9:30 and they'd been like reading books, they were delightful. And we were like, that's it.
Hey, Dad,
no more
did you know
TV
about
in
this?
the mornings.
Did you know about that? Yeah.
Yeah, so it was very surprising to us, but it made life a lot easier. So we've been much more restrictive. We've been as restrictive with them about television and other things like that as my mom was with us. And for us, it was really like no TV after 9 a.m. on weekends. If you get home from school, we got home from school around 3, but no TV until 6 p.m. and then stop at dinner and then you could watch after. And then kind of are on a similar schedule at my house.
See, we were the other way around. We were allowed to watch TV when we got home, but then after dinner, then it was all homework and being families.
See, I went to high school in the 70s. I went to, not high school in the 70s. I went to school in the 70s and the early 80s when you could really get through all of school without doing any homework.
Oh, yeah.
It's like there's no one was paying attention.
Damn.
Yeah, I know.
Lucky.
Yeah.
So in the spirit of going back to video games,
Yeah.
It's like you said you downloaded the Path, so you're still obviously open to video games.
I'm totally open to
and
video
I'm sure
games.
after this podcast, you're going to get, just like Roger Ebert, a ton of recommendations.
I
for
would
games
love
to
them,
play.
and I'm sure that someone would tell me. Here's the thing: if someone emailed me, and here it will come, like, show me the cheat code that I can wander through the biggest, coolest, weirdest environment, and I will go. I'll tell you what I'd love to see. Stanislaw Lem, one of the greatest science fiction writers of all time, wrote an unbelievable. He's a Polish writer, and was lucky enough to have one of the greatest translators of all time too. His translator is a great writer in his own right. I can't remember his name right now off the top of my head, but Stanislaw Lem wrote a book called Eden, and it's about astronauts from Earth visiting a planet with a full thriving ecosystem that has nothing to do with anything they've ever seen before. And the book is just effectively these guys wandering through this landscape that's so weird. I'm getting goosebumps
Hey,
just
look at
thinking
this.
about it. Yeah. Look at this plant that when you touch it, it inflates and falls and smacks and then runs away in 100 directions. Like everything is weird. That would be an environment I would kill to wander around in.
Well, and the interesting thing for me is that a lot of the games that have like the huge environments, whether it's they're typically like massively multiplayer online games that are literally designed like Skinner machines to keep you pressing the button to get the pellet to keep going.
Right.
And it ends up being a massive time commitment to actually get to explore that stuff. So having the opportunity to explore the big world unfettered is pretty compelling.
That is, and that to me is the thing that's interesting. All the Unreal engines, all the Unreal demo and Unreal Engine.
You're talking about
demo,
like the castle thing on
Castle
iOS.
Rama, and there's a few others.
Yeah.
All of those I find really, really compelling, and that they just scratch the surface of my level of interest.
Maybe what we should do is set up in the office someday and give you a guided tour of
I would love that.
video game stuff.
I would
that people wanna
totally
see.
love that. I mean, 'cause like I said, I thought the levels in Unreal were awesome, and we played with some where gravity wasn't a factor, where you can adjust the laws of physics, and those were stunning. I was just reading, Boing Boing had a post about a video game simulating slower than speed
Oh, I
of light.
played that. Yeah.
And I thought that that's kind of stuff to me is thrilling. So I think that it's not that I'm against video
It's not
games.
a cognitive surplus thing. That,
No,
that you're, okay.
no. It's that I particularly lack a certain part of my brain at one point in a key moment of development that most people got that keeps me from enjoying what most people enjoy about video games. But I still think of them as, the amount of art and ingenuity and intelligence going into them is massive. I mean, I watch my son playing Call of Duty, and I'm like, wow, that is so beautiful.
Yeah.
And then he shoots a guy in the face and moves on to the next victim.
And turns into a jerk.
I don't think it's turning him into a serial killer. I think all that whole video game thing is all the scare that people have from that.
Well, I mean, that's been
Aside from the rapey parts of Grand Theft Auto and stuff like that.
To be clear, there were no rapey parts of Grand Theft
Is it
Auto.
not Grand
that I'm
Theft
aware
Auto?
of.
Which is the one which is the video game where they're
Saints Row has like not
they're
rapey parts,
real
but they're
careful about rapey.
Yeah.
really?
Like,
I thought I remember reading about
Postal,
one where
maybe.
you had to beat a hooker to get the right information.
That's in a couple.
That's probably Grand Theft Auto.
that's
You're gonna have
definitely
to.
games.
You're gonna have to go a long way to
don't
convince
don't
me why that's
suggest-
good for
yeah, don't
anybody
suggest
under
that
any
game, Adam.
circumstances.
So we're going to take game suggestions
Yeah.
for Adam,
Yep.
post in the comments, and I think we're still taking questions for Adams for this podcast.
Exactly right.
If you have an audio question or a
Absolutely.
written question, send an email to podcast@tested.com.
with the subject line. Question for Adam.
Question for Adam. There you go.
And we'll be back next week with another edition of Still Untitled.
And we should plan to revisit this after I've played some things in your office.
Well, we're set up to capture. So what we can do is sit down on the couch with game controllers and run you through
and
a
then
whole
get
bunch of different stuff.
real-time commentary.
Absolutely.
And
then talk about it afterwards.
I would love that.
Yeah. Okay.
Video games.
See you guys later.
Bye-bye.